back to the Meeple Marathon. Today we're going to talk about how to play Ezra and Nehemiah. This is the most recent game from Garphill Games. Here is the cover over here. And this is in their ancient anthology, so it's not in one of their trilogies. This kind of fits in with Hadrian's Wall, Legacy of You, and those, those games. I'm not going to cover setup fully. There's a lot of steps. This does take a little bit while to set up, but I do want to highlight a few things that just make sure you don't overlook. The first thing is that when you're setting up this outside board here, if you are playing with 2 or less people, you're actually going to go ahead and complete some of the walls and gate sections without anybody claiming them. So that's one of the objectives of the game, is to build back up, clear the rubble, and then build back up the wall sections and the gates around the city of Jerusalem. Also, when you are placing rubble, which is represented by these cubes here, you're actually going to want to place random cubes based on the number of these little 4-colored diamond shapes here, not these shapes here. So you're not going to come and put 2 wood and a stone at this spot. You're going to pick 3 random cubes out of the bag. That's why there's a bag, and that's the only reason why there's a bag in the game, is to randomize the placing out of rubble. This that you see printed on the board is what you have to pay to then build the wall sections. First you have to clear away the rubble, then you have to build the wall. This card here, which is varying bonuses depending on where you land at the end of each round based on these 2 prophets here, do have differing number values. So if you get used to playing one, for example, this one is at 1 and 11, which is a very big number, but over here it's at 4 and 7 for that first round, and that's the random one I ended up with. Also, if you're playing with 2 or less players, you're going to randomly put out all these tiles, but these 2 outside ones on the first row, in this case it's Nehemiah and Zerubbabel, have the white workers. We'll talk about more about what they mean in the end. Otherwise, again, setup, you just follow the rules. Setup for a solo game, which I'll be explaining how to play solo later in the video, goes exactly like a 2-player setup would be, except for the fact that you are going to go ahead and claim 2 gates for the AI and 2 gates for yourself. They are going to need a stack of wall cards and workers in their color, but other than that, they get their own board, they get their own cards here. Everything for you is the same. Okay, so Ezra and Nehemiah takes place over thematically 3 weeks. Now, all of this did take place in history. It took place over many, many, many years, not 3 weeks, but there is a lot of historical fact to this game. That means each week is going to include 6 turns for each player, followed by a kind of wrap-up phase called the Sabbath. So it's essentially the week, 6 days of the week, and then you get to Sunday, and that's when you get to, you look for these bonuses, you're going to gain, you get to tuck cards, all sorts of things. We'll talk more about that in the beginning. A game of Ezra and Nehemiah is played over 3 rounds called weeks. Those weeks are broken up into 6 turns, representing Monday through Saturday, followed by the Sabbath, which is kind of a cleanup phase. A lot of, you're gonna have to feed your people, things like that. We'll get to that. At the beginning of your turn, representing a weekday, you're going to take one of 4 cards from your hand. You're always going to have 4 cards in your hand, and these are specific to you, but they match, everybody has the same workers, like the mason and the teacher, the gatherer and the scholar. But you have a much larger deck of cards, so you never quite know what you're going to have in your hand. You're going to choose one of these cards to play down, and that's going to tell you a lot about the actions that you are able to take on your turn. The first thing is that the banners up here in the left-hand corner represent the strength of the action that you can take of that color. So let me explain a little bit better here with say these 3 workers having been placed out. So this would be what my board would look like in the middle of or after my 3rd turn. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. In this situation, on my 3rd turn, I could choose to take a gray action with a strength of 3, 1, 2, 3 gray banners, a blue action with a strength of 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or a red action with a strength of 1. Once you have placed your worker down, you then can take 1 main action and additional auxiliary actions, which are kind of like free actions. Your main actions, we're going to cover all those here in a second, but those are going to go out to the main board, and those are going to be the ones that you are going to use the number of banners to determine the power of that action. And you can only pick, like, I'm going to do a blue action this turn, or I'm going to do a gray action this turn. You cannot do blue and gray on the same turn. 1 main action. While we're here at the board, though, let's talk about some of your auxiliary actions that you can take. Each of your worker cards has a trade ability at the bottom. The turn you played that worker, so say I play my mason on this turn, I can, as many times as I want with the infinity symbol, trade in 1 stone for 2 silver. Over here for the teacher, if I had just played him, I could pay 1 bread for 2 silver. Here at the scholar has to go to a gate to take his action. So he has to go to the valley gate. He would have to pay the valley gate a silver. So if somebody is in control of that gate, they would pay that person. If nobody controls it and it hasn't even been played out yet, they would place it directly on the card, which we'll see in a minute. Once that is done, you can either just gain 1 stone, or you could pay 2 silver to gain 2 stones. But you'll notice there's no infinity symbol here, so you can't do it as many times as you want. Either way, this action can be taken before or after your main action at any point in time, but you can only take the trade action of the person you just played. Also, you can send workers up here into one of these 2 spots. These workers here will go out and get you items. For example, placing a worker here would gain you 2 silver and a bread, or here would gain you a cinder, stone, or wood, and a bread. These workers then are going to stay here until the Sabbath, and you're going to have to pay them during the Sabbath. Over here, you can put a worker here to gain not only a coin, but 2 additional blue banners this turn. So say you're wanting to take a blue banner action with a strength of 7, you could place a worker here before you took your main action, get 2 additional blue banners, and 1 silver. Again, workers placed here stay here for the round. But you'll notice that all of these things on our player board here are modular. That's because the last auxiliary action you can take on your turn is to turn in what is required in this gray box up here to flip over this. When you do, say for example here, you pay 4 stone, not only do you get a worker from your supply, so you start with 5 and you got to keep others off to the side, you would gain a worker for future use, but then you also get to flip this token over. This is going to grant you 2 points at the end of the game, but now you've unlocked more slots to place people as an auxiliary action. All of these are the same on the front side, but they're all different on the back side. And you are at any point in time allowed to flip these over and take a look at them. But that's what this symbol here means, the one with the tree and the arrow. I don't know why they chose a tree. But whenever you see that symbol, that refers to either flipping over a tile for free or get points or coins based on how many tiles you have flipped over. The big one to note is that at the beginning of the game, this tile here holds all of your resources. And you start the game, each person starts the game with a different set down here, but you can only hold 7 total resources. Once you have upgraded this tile, however, you'll notice there's no spots, and so an unlimited number of resources can be placed on your board at this point. All right. So now that we have determined what we do at the beginning of our turn, we play a card down and then we determine what color action we want to take and what the strength is going to be, boosting it if necessary. Now let's go out to the main board and see what those actions, those main actions are. One last thing to cover on your player board here before we jump out to the main board are your blessings. I call them the pots, so you'll probably hear me say that. But anytime you gain a pot of a specific color, or if it's the one where it's the stripes of all three colors, you get to choose. You essentially just move your pot one further up the track. You gain the bonus listed above each column only when the last pot has reached that point. So in this case, I would finally get to move up one on the altar track, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But say my yellow one was way up here and my purple one had moved up here, and I finally moved my red one there. It doesn't matter that the orange one is ahead. It's just that the last one finally caught up. So it's my red one. I would get one tent movement, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So that's how these blessing, aka the pots, work. All right, so we're gonna start with the red actions. So you would have to spend red banners to take whatever strength action you want to take. There's two places to use your red banners. Before you do that though, if you're taking a red banner action, you have the option to essentially give up a worker as a Levite. In this case, you would place it on your personal track here. We each start with one already on the board. You have to pay them to place them down, but then that's the only time you need to pay them. All your other workers who are out and about on other spots on the board, you're gonna have to pay during the Sabbath. These guys, you pay once and then you're done with them. They're also gaining you a bonus depending on what level. You're always gonna work from the bottom and build up. These Levites determine how many actions, how many red actions you can take with the strength of the banners. I'm going to repeat that. The Levites represent the number of actions you can take that are red. They have to be red actions using the total strength of your red banners. So let's look at these two actions a little bit more closely here. This one is rebuilding the temple. So you can see that depending on the player count, that's 4 player count. Here's a 3 player count. The temple is bigger the more people you have. But what you're going to be doing is placing either wood or stone or gold. So you can't put cinder. You can't build a temple with ash into these spots. Where you place it, up or down vertically, depends on the strength of the red banners you have. So if you have 5 strength of red banners, you can place in any one of these top rows, gaining a new worker. So the bonuses get better the higher you go up. Also, anytime that a entire section, in this case in a 1 to 2 player game, it's just going to be these columns is completely filled, it's going to trigger a bunch of bonuses. We'll talk about those a little later. But if I had 2 Levites here, I could place down 2 things into the altar. Say I had 3 red banners, I could put one here for the 1 and one here for the 2. That's a total strength of 3 red banners, and I'm placing 2 cubes down because I have 2 Levites down. But let's just say, for example's sake, that I have 3 Levites down. Well, now I could say place, and I had maybe 7 red banners worth of power. I could place one here at the 3. I could place one here at the 1. That's 4 total strength of red banners. And my third one, I could go over here and drop into the altar. The altar, which we need to keep burning, accepts cinder or wood. If you put in wood, it burns hotter than putting in hot ash. But putting in wood requires a strength of 3. Well, I have 3 left over. I had 7 total. I spent 4 on the temple, putting down 2 things. I can place a third because I have 3 Levites, and I have 3 additional power left. So and I have to have a wood resource to give it. I also have to have resources on hand to build here. But I would place my wood resource here, and I get to move my marker 1, 2 spots up on the altar track. So that is what you can do with your red banners. You either build in the temple or feed the altar, moving your flame up the track here. The number of cubes you can add to the temple or add to the altar is dependent on the number of Levites you have, and how high you can go or what things you can place into the altar depends on the strength of your red banners displayed on your player board. Not just the card you played that turn, but your entire player board. That's how you get up to high numbers like 7, 8, 9. So let's quickly, before we leave this area, talk about the rewards that you get from attending to these two areas. Coming back over to here, anytime a column or a full area, in 1 to 2 players it's a column, is completed, we're going to gain these additional actions here. So whoever placed that last piece down is going to gain 2 food. So if you're the active player, that's what that check mark means. You get 2 food when you did it. Whoever has the most Levites, that's what that symbol means with the blue arrow, gains 2 victory points around the kind of interior track here. If you're tied, you both get it. And then last but not least, whoever is is furthest along this altar track gets a silver. So that happens whenever you fill up an entire area of, see, there's 1, 2, 3 shaded areas. They're different shapes on the higher player boards, or on the higher player counts. The altar, anytime you pass over a symbol here on the altar track, you gain that. So I would have gained a food and a silver for moving 2 spots. You don't gain anything for the yellow marks. At the Sabbath, however, you're going to look at where your marker is. Let's say we pushed here, and that's as far as the AI pushed. You're going to look at this card here, and you're going to see where your marker is in comparison to these 2 prophets here. And you're going to gain the symbol in that area based on the round. So if this is the first Sabbath, you're looking at this top row. Second Sabbath, you're looking at the middle row. Third Sabbath, you're looking at the bottom row. So the AI player here, since they have not even caught up to this first Sabbath or first prophet, would actually lose a victory point immediately. I'm in between them, so I would gain a push on my red pots there. If I had pushed all the way up above both of them, I would have gotten to move up 1 pot of a color of my choice. So that is how the altar track scores. Then at the end of the game, at the end of the Sabbath, whoever is furthest along is going to gain a worker after the second, and 3 victory points after the third. That is the red actions. I'm going to take these guys back so we don't confuse anybody. Up next, let's talk about the gray actions. So gray is focused entirely on the outer wall out here. When we take a gray action, we are only allowed to focus on 1 section of a wall. The first thing you have to do with that section is clear away the rubble. If a wall section already is cleared of rubble, then you can build it. And you can clear away the rubble and build that section all in the same turn. But again, you have to have the strength in gray banners to do so. So how do we know how much it costs to clear away this rubble? Well, there's this little tiny chart right here in the almost dead center of the board. Essentially, it tells you that cinder costs 1 gray banner. Wood and stone costs 2, and gold costs 3. So let's see here. This spot over here would only cost me 3 gray banners worth of strength to clear off all 3 of those cinders. Anything left over, you can then use to try and build the wall section. Now, if you are the person who has cleared off the last piece of rubble, you gain the bonus that is printed on the board, which is moving your pot up of that specific color. Once you've cleared off the rubble and you choose you want to build this wall section, you then have to have more. So say we are focused on this one, and I know it's upside down, but that's how I'm sitting here reading it. So we clear away this for 1 and this for 2, so that's 3 total gray power. I would need 7 in order to build this wall section because I need 4 more. I would also need 2 wood and a stone. I gain these immediately, so these would go on to my player board, but my player board unfortunately doesn't have stone on it, so I wouldn't be able to do it. But let's just pretend I did have stone. I gain these immediately. I can turn around and spend them back. I spend this number of banner strength plus those resources back to the supply, and I get to build a wall section. That's where these cards come in, these small Euro cards with your color on them. You're going to draw 3 cards off the top of your deck here, and you're going to flip them over and choose 1. Now you can see they're going to give you various victory points on the bottom, but they're also going to give you instant bonuses for building the wall. Now here's the trick. You pick 1. Say I am really focused on moving up my pots. So I would place this here like so. That's going to let me know at the end of the game, this is worth 2 points for me because that's my color. Out of the 2 remaining cards, I have to choose 1 to go back on top and 1 to go on the bottom. So the one I put on the bottom, I'm probably not going to see again for the rest of the game. I'd rather have this than this, so I'm going to put this one on the bottom, and there we go. You don't shuffle this up anymore. So you know what one of those cards is going to be that you draw the next time you build a wall. If instead of building a wall section, you want to build a gate, same thing happens. You would clear away the rubble, spending necessary gray power. Then you discard the resources off your player board, spending again gray banner power. And then you would go over here and you would find the gate card that's been sitting off on the side of the board. If there is any silver on that gate card, you gain it. That's for people who utilized this gate to take a trade action before anybody owned it. So think of it as they just dropped the silver in a box that said, you know, please, what's that? Honor method. Anyways, you would get to take that silver, but you will place down this. You can see that it does have a bonus action or thing to take listed here at the bottom. You also, however, have to place a gatekeeper at the gate because they're going to be the ones that collect the silver now. They are going to stay there. They don't come back, but this is how you know at the end of the game you get these 4 points. Also, at the end of during the game, sorry, not at the end of the game, anytime you have a wall section and a gate that are built together, you're going to gain what's at the top of the gate card. So in this case, I would gain a silver and a wood because I built the gate next to this. If this was not me, if this was someone else, that person would also gain a silver and a wood. And whenever somebody builds here, that person and me are going to gain a silver and a wood. If it's me, however, if I surround all my gates with my own wall pieces, I only get the bonus ones. But that is how you build up the walls. All gray banner actions. You have to clear away rubble first, gain bonus, spend resources and gray banners to put a card down, gain bonus, and if you match it up with a gate, you get the resource listed above the gate. And if it's a gate you built, you have to place a worker down. So you have to have a worker to place down. You can't take it out of the main supply. All right. So we'll put all this back here so we don't mess that up. Last but not least, we have the blue actions. So the blue actions allow you to come over here to this side of the board. We kind of started on the left, then we went to the outside. Now we're on the right. The blue actions allow you to place one scribe, which is up here with the scrolls, and optionally move your tent around the city. So let's talk about scribes first and the scrolls. This is the teaching of the Torah, and as far as the story is concerned. What you need to do is build off of other people. So you can see in a 1 to 2 player game, we already have 2 neutral people started here. You have to build off of them, branch off of them, and make your way up, hopefully to the top of this scroll tower here, or pyramid. To do that, you need to pay in blue strength and blue banners the number listed along the left here, along with those resources. So to place into this bottom row, you're going to gain, you would have to pay 3 blue banners and 2 silver to place someone in this bottom row. At the end of the game, that person is going to be worth 1 point. Once you start placing up here, see it gets more expensive. If you're the first person to do it, you get the food that is placed here during setup. But then they'll be worth more and more points the higher up you get. And the higher up you get, the more food you get. People that you place here on the scroll track stay there the whole game. They stay at university or whatever thematically you want to call it. You still have to feed them. They're still working for you, but you don't get them back to put them anywhere else at the end of the game. They stay put. So that allows you, though, to continue building up and up and up. You can branch off anybody. So I could take my worker, and let's say he had branched there. I could then jump all the way up here. I have a continuous line that I can connect back down to the bottom. The problem is that I'm using the AI's scribe to do the branching. So I actually would have to pay that person, the blue player, which in this case is the AI, a silver. So ideally, and if you branch off of a white player, the neutral player, you have to pay your silver to the supply. So ideally, you want to have a branch that follows yourself. So where you can connect a straight line from yourself all the way back down. And let's just say, for example, I had come in here, I had come in there, and I go there, and then later on I want to come right here. I can draw a line all the way through myself, so I don't have to pay anybody. Just because I could draw the line this way, I can choose to go my way. I don't have to pay them just because I can draw the line through them. This first row, by placing a scribe there, you're going to gain access to that person's card. Depending on the round, so round 1, round 2, round 3, this is the resource you're instantly going to gain. You're also going to be allowed to tuck this card under your little player reference card, which we'll get back to, and that's going to become a permanent banner for you to always count when you're counting up banner strength. These 2 middle rows are like ongoing bonuses, passive effects that generally allow you to make things cheaper for you, or make exchange rates better, give you additional trade auxiliary actions that you can take, something like that. There's a lot of these tiles. Just reference the back of the book. And then last but not least, the top row is essentially end game scoring conditions. You'll see that they all have the golden score marker on them with the greenery. That's because you're not going to pay attention to those until the end of the game, but you should still reference the back of the manual to know what you're getting into. Quick note about these 2 white neutral workers. Since they start the game there, at any point in time, you can choose to either branch off of them, paying a silver to the supply, or you can choose to displace them. So for free, you still have to pay for here, but you could place your worker here. Anytime you displace a white worker, they go up and out. So this guy goes that way, and this guy goes that way. And this is for solo and 1 to 2 players. Last but not least is our tent action. This represents going outside the city and traveling around to the people in the countryside and so forth. And again, sharing the Torah with them, saying, hey, come back to Jerusalem, we're rebuilding the city walls, so on and so forth. This is a very simple action. Depending on the strength of blue banner that you use. So, and remember, you can do both. So you can send someone here, say you have a 5 blue power. You could put someone here on the bottom row and then come over here with the last 2 to move your tent 1 space. As you get higher up, say to move 3 spaces, it costs 7 strength of blue, but also 1 resource. All you do though then is move 1 while moving the AI. Say I'm paid for 3, 1, 2, 3. Anything I pass over, similar to the altar track, I gain. And that's it. There's no bonus points for anything like how many times you've lapped around the board or anything like that. And if near the end of the game, if you cannot gain another worker or you cannot move your pots any further, you just simply move your tent one more spot and gain that bonus. And that, ladies and gentlemen, are the blue actions. After you have played 6 turns, so you've played Monday through Saturday, it's time to take the Sabbath. And remember, Sabbath is kind of like the upkeep phase, but we're also going to gain some bonuses for the Sabbath. So let's just pretend that I have taken some of these additional actions here. Maybe I also placed a Levite there, and I placed someone up there. All right. First things first is go ahead and take your reference board and flip it over. The backside here is for the Sabbath. And first things first, you're going to then look for this symbol. I think this is like a ancient calendar. That's what we're looking at here, or timer, or clock, or something like that. But anytime you see that symbol, you're going to take that action. So let's just say, for example, I had also flipped this over. In this case, this symbol allows me to take one of these 2 workers and draw them back. I'll show you why that's important. So I had 1 worker in hand, now I have 2 workers in hand. Also, we would look up here. Here's that symbol again. So remember, we had moved these around earlier. Oops. But after the first round, let's say I'm like this. The AI player would lose a victory point. I would gain 1 pop on that pop track. So we resolve all of those symbols. Next, we're going to use any remaining workers we have as farmers and laborers. Because remember, we need to feed our people. So this is a great time to send people out as farmers. On your player board, you would simply place them right here, and you can place any number of workers there to gain 2 food per worker you place. This is a great way to get that last bit of food that maybe you couldn't get throughout the week. But if you don't need food necessarily and don't want to stockpile on food, you could always send one here as a laborer and gain either 2 of these types of resources or 1 of those and 2 silver. Again, so dragging someone back that you used earlier to take a bonus action gives you the ability to use them as a farmer and a laborer. So that's why this action right here was important. Next on the Sabbath, we need to feed our workers. So this is everybody that you have, excluding the ones still in your supply that you have not been granted access to, minus also your Levites. So in this case, I would have to feed 1, 2, 3, 4 workers. Oh, I'm sorry, 5 workers, 6 workers. I forgot those guys started out there, but not this 7th or 8th. I already fed those guys. Remember, I fed them to place them down. So in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Did I do that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So I would have to come up with 6 food in order to feed my workers. I lose 2 victory points for everybody I cannot feed, but then we move on. The last thing you're going to do, and you should at this point have 6 cards down in front of you, is to choose one of the cards that you played, and you're going to tuck this card. It's permanently going to be added underneath your reference board here. See how there's a little pocket there? Do 2 things. 1 is gain the permanent banner, only the one that's in the brown box at the top. You're going to gain that banner permanently, but also it's going to give you an action that you gain, usually points, during the Sabbath. So let's say I really want to focus on pushing up the altar track, and I'm not concerned about losing access to this trade or these other 2 banners. I'm okay with losing my carpenter, essentially. So I'm going to tuck him at this point right here. For the rest of the game, I have an extra red banner, but also now I'm getting points for every spot, every gold spot I've passed on the altar track, I get a point, which right now is just 1. But remember, I'm going to focus on this, so hopefully that scores me more every Sabbath. All right. The rest of these guys are going to be added to your discard pile. At this point, you probably would have 3 cards in hand. Don't shuffle those up. You get to keep those, but you're going to shuffle all the people you picked up off your board into your draw pile. and then reset your hand to 4. So maybe you only had 3. There you go. You reset to 4. At the end of every turn, you should be resetting to 4. You should always have 4 cards in your hand. Flipping this back over to make sure we get the last few things. After we have completed all of that, we've tucked our character card, we have fed our workers, we need to do a few things. We're going to move these 2 guys. So in round 2, this guy would jump up to 12 and this guy to 8. We're also going to retrieve all of our workers, but only the ones on our player board. So only these guys. Because anybody that has been placed out on the board stays on the board. Levites stay, gatekeepers stay, scribes stay. So now I went from having 4 or 5 workers to just 3 in hand. This is, again, at this point where whoever is leading on the altar track would gain a worker. So since I'm leading, I would get to gain a worker. And you then, again, make sure you have 4 cards in your hand. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That is how you play Ezra and Nehemiah. At the end of the game, you're essentially converting everything to silver. And there is some conversion here at the bottom of this reference board. Gold equals 3 silver, wood, stone, and food equals 2 silver, and cinders equals 1 silver. And then you will convert all of that into VP, because basically whoever is furthest around this track is the winner. So every 5 silver equals 1 VP, and then you go around counting up all of the golden, golden numbers on places. You count all those up, you add in your score. Whoever has the most is the winner. All right, so that is how you, a physical human player, plays Ezra and Nehemiah. Let's now focus on how you control the solo AI so that you can play the game solo. So in the solo mode, you play exactly like you normally would. Nothing changes for you. When it comes time to take actions for the AI, and first of all, they start as the first player, but this will pass in between rounds. You're simply going to flip over one of these focus cards and one of these scheme cards. So the lion and the lamb. Now, before we dive into what these cards tell us, let me give you a few things that are pretty standard for AI, especially AI in Garphill Games. They don't collect every single resource. They simplify it, and basically, if it's a cube, it's going to be gold. If it's food, instead it's going to be silver. So they only work in silver and gold. Also, if they cannot take the trade action listed on their focus card, or if they're asked to bring back a worker off their player board, which they don't have any spot for them, then they move their tent. So they always are collecting anytime they gain a resource, but unless it's a blessing pot here or it is already silver and gold, they convert it into silver or gold. Okay, so let's look at our focus cards first, the lion cards. It's giving us a good bit of information here. One is a gate, another is a location of where that gate is. And so on the main board, the fountain gate is in the lower right if you're sitting underneath the board with it all facing you. Also, this directional arrow is going to tell us that if we have to make decisions, essentially we're going to start from the fountain gate and we're going to go to the left. We're going to go clockwise. Then finally here on the bottom, we do have our trade ability. So this would say, can he spend 1 silver to move up 1 orange blessing pot? He does. Currently he has 2 silver, so he could do that. He always wants to spend the most though. Could he spend 4 silver to move up 1 pot and 1 tent? No, he cannot do that. So he is going to take this action. He would trade in 1 silver. He would put it back in the main supply. He would move up 1 spot on his orange pot, and then we're good. Again, if he was not able to do that, he's going to get to move his tent. Then we go over here to our scheme card. The scheme card, we simply work from top to bottom. The left of the arrow is the requirements the AI has to have in order to take the action. It's not what they give up though. It's just what they have to have. So at the beginning of the game here, this AI actually only has 1 worker, 2 silver, and no gold. That was given to us by this banner here. The 1 star is the easy side. On the other side of this board is a harder side. That actually does give him some gold. But we look here. Does the AI have 2 workers and 2 gold? No. Only 1 worker and no gold. So he's not taking a temple action. Does he have 0 to 1 gold? Well, no. If he did, he would get 2 gold. So finally down here, the bottom one is almost always going to have no requirements. So 0 requirements. He's simply going to move 3 spaces on the altar track and gain 1 worker. So he would gain 1 worker, and then he would go up to 1, 2, 3, right there. Boop. Stand up, sir. And there you go. So all of the scheme cards are like this, that they are looking for a requirement. Here now, I would have 2 workers, but the AI does not have 2 gold. He does not have 2 gold, so this symbol means he's going to clear rubble. There is a specific player reference card for the AI, and you can see here, clear rubble. This one is clear rubble and build the gate, clear rubble and build the wall, take the temple action, and the scroll action. So pretty straightforward. Once you get into the flow of things, it's pretty easy to flip over these 2 cards and get moving. Let's look out at the main board now and talk about how they go about taking their actions. So their actions, again, are all going to be found right here. They're all going to be one of these symbols. First of all, if they go to temple, they're either going to attempt to build the temple or they're going to attempt to feed the altar. But first, they're going to attempt to place a Levite. Just like we get the opportunity to place a Levite, they also get the opportunity to place a Levite. To do that, they have to spend 2 gold. If they don't have 2 gold, they just skip this step. If they do have 2 gold, it returns to the main supply. They put a Levite down. They don't have to pay for food. They paid it in gold. But they do gain their equivalent of the bonus on the right, which essentially comes back in the form of gold these first 3 times, then a pot movement, and then remember here we're moving a tent. If they're ever given a wild pot movement, they're always going to move whatever is furthest behind. So the leftmost pot. If there's a tie, pick one, it doesn't matter. Once they do that, then they're going to count the number of Levites that they have. Remember, Levites equal the number of things you can place down either into the temple or the altar, the number of blocks you can place. Okay, they're going to count up the number of Levites they have, and for each Levite, they're going to attempt to do one of these things I'm about to say in this order. So first thing they're going to do is try and place a gold into the temple. All right, they're always going to start on the bottom left and work their way up. Again, they're gaining stuff that is on the right in the form of silver and gold. And if they fill out a complete column on this board, it triggers all the bonuses, so on and so forth. If they do not have a gold to place into, and they also gain 2 victory points as well. If they do not have a gold to turn into or to build into the temple, they will try and trade a silver for a gold. So if they have a silver, they'll turn it in, they'll gain a gold in return. At this point, we would, if we had more than 1 Levite, we would start back up at the top and say, all right, can he place a gold into the temple? Well, yes, now he can, because he just spent a silver to gain a gold with his first Levite. Now with his second Levite, we started back at the top. He's placing the gold into the temple. The last thing that he will do if he cannot place gold into the temple or convert silver into gold is move on the altar track 1 space. But again, moving on the altar track may gain you silver. So the next Levite that you are accounting for, you start at the top again. Can that Levite put into the temple? Can that Levite turn silver into gold? More than likely, yes, because you just would have moved along this track and probably gained gold. Here you're gaining some pots, but there's a good chance. So you always, for every Levite, you go through those 3 options, top to bottom. Place a gold into the temple, trade silver for gold, move along the altar track. Next up is the clear rubble and build action. So that's going to be the pickaxe, which is just clear rubble. And again, if he's taking any of these actions, his focus card is going to tell him where to start focusing. So here he would focus on the fountain gate. Well, the fountain gate's already been built, so now he's going to go to the left. All right. Depending on which action that we saw, is he looking for the first gate that hasn't been built? Is he just looking for the first set of rubble to be cleared? Or is he looking for a wall section? So you look for the symbol, and then you look for the focus card to determine which kind of corner gate or other gate you start at and which direction you go until you find a valid point. So remember, focus card gives you the focus of where they're going to do their work. Other than that, they're going to clear the rubble away, and they don't have to pay for it. So they clear all the rubble that's in a space that they're targeting. They get the gold. They turn everything else into gold. Basically, for every cube they clear, they're going to gain a gold. And then they're going to turn around and pay 3 gold to either place the gate or the wall. If it's the gate, they take it from the left, and they have to place a worker on it. If it's a wall space, they simply just take the top card and place it down. Again, they are gaining all of the blessings, all of the bonuses from clearing rubble. They gain the pot bonus from placing the wall. They gain that bonus. If they place adjacent to a already built gate, they get that bonus. But their bonuses all become either silver or gold. Last but not least, they are going to place a scribe. Now, there are some times where the action will tell you actually to place on the lowest level possible. So they either want to place on the highest level possible or the lowest level possible. They're always going to try to trace their line through themselves, but again, they're always going to try and get as high as possible. So if going to the highest point possible is tracing a line through someone else, they will do so. Now, they will pay gold based on the level that they're trying to get to, where 1 is the base level here, then 2, then 3, then 4. If, however, the first level is already filled, we kind of skip that one, and this one becomes 1, 2, 3. If the second level is full, then we just spend 1 and 2. So there's a handicap as the temple begins to fill up. More than likely, unless they jump all the way up to the 4th level while the bottom one's still empty, they're rarely going to be paying 4 gold to do so. Now, there are generally, if you have to pay silver to an opponent and your AI is the opponent, you're going to give him or her that silver. And if the AI has to pay you silver, they're going to give you silver from their supply. For some reason, they have you, if you are providing them their connection to get back to the bottom of the temple from their scribe, and they have to pay you a silver. For some reason, that one comes from the main supply. I don't know why. I mean, I'm assuming it's some balancing issue, but it really throws a monkey wrench into just making it very simple of, yes, if they have to pay you, it comes out of their supply. And if you have to pay them, it always goes to them. White workers still go to the main supply. Anyways, just thought that was weird that was so different. Also, anytime they move their tent, they're gaining the bonuses listed, transferred into silver and gold. Last but not least, we're going to flip over our little reference card here, and we'll talk about the Sabbath, preparing for the Sabbath. So their Sabbath preparedness is pretty simple. First thing they're going to do is look to see where they are based on these profits, and they're going to take their altar bonus or negative effect as required. Again, transferring it into what they can take on their board. For the next part, after they have dealt with where they are on the altar track with the profits, let's zoom down here to the player board, and the rest of the Sabbath is contained in this section right here. So first thing is they're going to gain a silver for each worker that they have. Then they're going to gain a victory point for equal to wherever their highest scribe is. So if their highest scribe is on the top level, they'll gain 4 victory points. Then they're going to gain victory points, either 1 victory point per gatekeeper, 1 victory point per scribe, or 1 victory point per Levite, whichever number is highest. So if they have 4 Levites, 2 gatekeepers, and 1 scribe, they're getting 4 victory points. They're also going to gain a number of victory points equal to their furthest blessing pot, and a number of victory points equal to their how many orange flames they have surpassed on the altar track. At this point, we're going to shuffle both decks of cards, creating brand new decks, and we're good to go. We would pass the shofar, or whatever this thing is called, and so the human player would become first player, and that's it. So it's not the easiest, most straightforward AI by any means, but it's also not the hardest. It's probably up there for Garphill Games as far as complexity of AI and managing it, but I certainly can think of a lot of other games that the AI is even more complicated than this. Hopefully this is helpful, though. Certainly, though, make use of these reference tiles here. They have a lot of information on them, a lot of good information, and can help you get through things. And don't be afraid to play your first game with the rule book sitting wide open. Anyways, this in general now is how to play Ezra and Nehemiah. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know in the comment section below. And I will do my best to answer them. Otherwise, hopefully this video has been helpful for getting this to the table for you and your friends. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. Once again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.